The Three Daves talk about music, magazines and money.
Hello, my name is David K. Jones, but everyone calls me Dave. I'm the bass player with Mama Genesis Tribute Band. I also play bass in Plenty with Tim Bonus and Brian Hulse, and I create music videos for anyone who wants me to.
Hello, my name is David Broom, but everybody calls me Dave. I am the road manager with Mama Genesis Tribute Band, and in addition I play electric acoustic guitars and I'm into photography.
Hello, my name is David Heaton, but everyone calls me Dave, Dr. Dave. I am the lighting engineer with Mama Genesis Tribute Band. In addition, I love to play golf and support Bolton Wanderers.
Today's podcast is about music, magazines and money. We're going to kick off by talking about music, and the three of us are going to talk about the kind of music we listened to when we were growing up. Now, I'm going to start the ball rolling. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. So during the 60s, lots of the music that I was listening to was just on the radio. We'd be listening to Radio 1. Radio 1 then was not like Radio 1 is now. Let me point that out. And so I'd be listening to things like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and then eventually I'd reach the point where I was listening to things that were quite different. The first time I ever heard any music that was completely something that I'd never heard before was when my friend, I'm going to name drop now, here we go, here's the name drop, when my friend Peter Clark, now you've probably never heard of Peter Clark, but Peter Clark grew up to be Budgie, the drummer with Susie and the Banshees. Peter and I went to school together. Big name drop. Okay, and Peter had a brother, and his brother had a very, very big record collection. And on Saturday nights, we'd go round, me and a few mates, and he'd play albums that we'd never heard of before. And he happened to play Yes, the first album, which had a track on it called Survival. And I listened to that track and thought, I've never heard anything like that before, because the bass player was off the scale. And the singer was singing in such a high-pitched voice, it was really unusual. I went out and bought that album, and since then, I've never looked back.
Very similar to my background in listening to early music. I used to sit with a mate of mine in his dad's car on the Saturday morning, and we used to listen to Radio 1, and it used to be Noel Edmonds. And Noel Edmonds played a great variety of music, and one band that really stuck with me was Crosby, Stills and Nash, and the vocals, the acoustic keyboard, acoustic guitars, and the blend of the three voices together used to be fantastic. And also a lad I was at school with, a bit of a name drop, he's quite a famous poet now, he lives down south, Paul Tobin. His brother had an enormous record collection, and that is where I first heard bands like Yes, Iron Butterfly, the Strawbs, the Incredible String Band and Fairport Convention.
I think this is going to turn out to be something like the three Yorkshiremen, the upper class, the middle class and the lower class, because I have nothing like what you've just heard from the other two Daves. Growing up, the only music I heard was my dad playing a piano in the front room of our house till I was 11 years old, whereupon my mum left my dad and took us into the wide world, and then I became acquainted with pop music, and again it was the radios and Radio 1, and I think there was just the start of some commercial radio that we probably heard, but music and television, as it was back in the day, were very out of our scope with the way my dad brought us up. But my introduction would have been 70s pop music and all that entailed.
I can relate to the fact that Dave, you were listening to Iron Butterfly, because when I was buying albums, the first albums I couldn't afford expensive albums. The first albums I could afford were sampler albums, where you would buy this album for £1, and this album for £1 had a track from different bands on each side. It was vinyl, obviously, and there were 6 on one side and 6 on the other. And I remember buying The Age of Atlantic, and it had a plasticine cover, and I bought it for the plasticine cover. But on the album was Yes. They played the track Survival that I talked about. They also played a track by a group called Led Zeppelin, who I'd not heard of at that point, and they were also something that blew my mind. But I Am Butterfly were on that album, Dave. And as well as that, there were lots of other people who I got into by buying these compilation albums. There's another one I bought. This one was more expensive. This was £1, and well, in those days there were shillings, so it was £1, 2 shillings and 6pence, I think it was, and it was a double album, and it was called LP, ELPEA, and the front cover was a garden pea, just a picture of a garden pea. This is hard to visualise in a podcast, but the simple fact of the matter is it just looked like a big garden pea, and it said LP on it, and it was Island Records. And on that album, that's when I heard Jethro Tull, and I loved Jethro Tull from that point onwards. But there were loads of people I got into like that, just by buying sampler albums to try and find out. And I think one of the things that people don't relate to today is music today is so accessible. You can say to me, have you heard of something? And I will just get the phone out, Google it, YouTube it, and I'll be able to listen to it in an instant. You couldn't do that then.
Well, these were days before the internet.
Yeah, you couldn't do that then. All you could do then is go to town, and if you were lucky, I don't know if it was like where you were, but where I was, we had a shop called, I think it was called Rothery Records, it might have been Rumbelows, but it had booths, and you could say, will you put this record on? And you could only get away with 3, and then she'd chuck you out the one because you obviously weren't going to buy anything. But you'd put a record on and listen to it in the booth and think, oh, this is interesting. Or you think, oh no, this is horrible. And that's the only way you could listen to it, because you couldn't. The radio stations, there was only Radio 1, that was it. So if it wasn't played on Radio 1, you never got to hear it. And so you'd then be trying to find a TV station where a TV programme would bring you into music. And for me, that was the Old Grey Whistle Test.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember back in the day when, like we said, before the internet, and Rumbelows in Widnes, they were a music shop and they had booths. And you used to go, and can you play track 3 off this album, please, and whatever. And then we did manage to get a Virgin Records in Liverpool, and it was a porky little hole in Bowl Street, up a flight of stairs, before it became the huge superstore that it became. You used to buy all the American imports from there.
For myself, I moved from the house I was raised in into Bolton. From there, it was, like I said, listening to the radio and pop music. Started getting pocket money, which I'd never had before, and started going out and buying some of the records that I actually heard on the radio, to the extent that it used to be that my pocket money was spent each week on buying a single. So I can't remember the name of the stores. We definitely had a Rumbelows in Bolton. We were a little bit futuristic in Bolton back in the day, but I did see the booths, but I never went into the booths. Basically what I did is what I heard on the music sound. If I liked it, I went and bought it and added it to my collection. And then I had a few cases bought for me, so bought a couple of early LPs. I think one of the first would have been the Now One. I think we're about 125 now, but just having a massive collection that built up, and having a turntable in my own room, something again that I'd never had. So I had my own room and managed to get a turntable. I think it was either for a birthday present or a Christmas present, to play them on, and love going up there. And I'd open the windows, and if I listened to it, everybody listened to it.
I can relate to that one as well, because I had I don't know what they call them, a dance set, or whatever you call it. As you'd open the booth, you'd open the thing, and you could stack singles up on it, and they'd fall down on top of each other. And when you got to about 4 or 5, they would jam, and they would lock each other and start slowing down and speeding up. But my favourite story is my next door neighbour, who I won't name, but he had one as well. And what happened was he had Get It On by T-Rex, but unfortunately he had an accident and he split some of the end of it off, so it wasn't a complete circular disc. So we played another track underneath it. He had another single underneath it. So every now and again it would go out of Get It On and it would go into this other track. Unfortunately, one day the other track, well, it sort of went, Get It On, bang a gong, Grandad, you're lovely. And then it went back into Get It On again. And because he'd put Clive Dunn underneath it. And all I could do all day was just laugh, because I was just listening to this thing, and it was probably one of the first ever, what do they call them now, mashups, where they put two things together. But if you've ever thought of putting Get It On with Grandad by Clive Dunn, I don't recommend it.
I remember the very first album I bought was Fleetwood Mac's Greatest Hits, but it was Fleetwood Mac, the blues band. Yeah, to me it's proper Fleetwood Mac. And the very first single I bought was Ringo Starr, It Don't Come Easy. But I also had a tape machine, but it was a reel-to-reel 4-track, huge thing, and we'd record everything. We had the finger on the pause button to cut out the talking off the radio. And
I did exactly the same, Dave. I've got my reel-to-reel is still with me. It's in the garage. Okay, I don't use it, but I have the same reel-to-reel recording the radio. And what I would listen to is on a Sunday, I'd listen to the charts. It was Alan Freeman, I think.
Yep.
And I would record the whole charts, the whole singles chart, and then just play it back.
Did you or did you not do the try to beat the DJ coming in so that you got no voice from him, just the music?
I did, but 9 times out of 10 I'd cut off the start or the end of the track, because you're just trying to stop it from him talking.
Just have a big clunk, click sound on the recording.
You're right. We're going to move on to money now, because one of the things Dave mentioned was the fact that he had pocket money for the first time. And my pocket money, I can remember it was 5 shillings. That's 25p. Isn't it? 25p?
Yeah.
5 shillings. Yeah. So I had 5 shillings. And during the 60s, when I was growing up, that went on 2 paperback books. I can tell you that for nothing. Every week I would buy 2 paperback books. Some weeks, if I had anything left over, because the price of books changed, I'd buy some sweets. Very exciting. But it was 2 paperback books until I discovered music. And then I asked for a wage increase so I could buy an album. So it went to £1. So I could buy myself a vinyl album a week to start my epic record collection off. So back in the day, money went a lot further, I think, than it does today. Although I only had 5 shillings, I could either get 2 paperback books, or I could get 1 paperback book and maybe some sweets. But the sweets would be things that don't exist anymore, like I used to love Spangles. I don't know if you've ever there was something called Spangles. They were like, I can't explain what they were. You would have a tube in a packet. You'd open it, take one out, unwrap it, put it in your mouth. And it was shaped like a square, but the middle of it was hollowed out for some reason. Probably trying to save money. Anyway, I remember spending my money on things like that.
Can you remember my first pocket money was 2 and 6?
2 and 6, which is hang on a minute,
12.5p.
12.5p, blimey. It used to go a long way. Yeah, nip down to the corner shop. Can they open the window so I can have a look at your sweets? And we'd buy things like penny bubblies, blackjacks, dib dabs. Flying saucers were another delicacy. It was rice paper filled with sherbet. Golf balls, bubblegum, golf ball bubblegum, and sweet tobacco. And the good old lucky bags with the bits of all sorts inside.
Lucky bags, I remember them. But there was a shop in St Helens, I can't remember what it's called. I could be wrong. It might have been called the Wizard's Cave, but I could be wrong about that. It had lucky bags of singles, vinyl singles. Wow. So it had a bag, and then it was 3 singles, and it was cheaper than buying obviously 3 singles, because they were just trying to get rid of old stock. And invariably, one of them was so bad, nobody would ever want to listen to it. something from the 50s probably. Because I remember I bought about 3 of them. One of them had a Who single in it, and 2 other singles of people I'd never heard of ever. They should have just been melted down.
I remember Lucky Bags, yeah, because they were a treat, very much a treat for us. But also, do you remember shrimps? Yeah, shrimps, pink shrimps, chocolate, white mice. I remember the chewing tobacco thing, old gold, Jamaican old gold. Yeah. Jeff, who some of you will know, that was his favourite delectation, as it were. I remember one time we were playing a gig in Matlock, Bath, and there was an old sweet shop there, and we found some old Jamaica chewing, and he bought absolute loads of it. And I said, Jeff, what you doing? He said, this just takes me back to my childhood, and I thought I would never get this again. But yeah, I know I was the one who raised pocket money, but I couldn't tell you how much my first lot of spending money were. I knew it bought me a single 45 disc, so however much they were back in the day, I could afford one of those. But like you say, it was either that or, and then the sweets were fruit salads as well, went with blackjacks, and what were the licorice laces, the red laces that you had, and think, like you say, things now that kids would never know about at all.
Do you remember buying the little piece of gold in the bag?
Yeah,
gold nuggets. Yeah, and they used to be in a little cloth bag, along with Bazooka Joes and stuff like that.
Chewy. Yeah. Break your jaws on them. Yeah. Jawbreakers. Did you get
Gobstoppers?
Yeah, Gobstoppers and jawbreakers.
Yeah.
Well, I'll name some for you now, because I've got a sort of list that I've looked at. There used to be something called an Aztec bar. I don't know if you've ever heard of an Aztec bar. There used to be something called a Whisper bar.
Yes, still is.
Bar. Still is a Whisper bar, okay. Picnic was a picnic.
Yes.
Drifter. Wafer, spelled W-A-I-F-A. Weird. But the one that sticks in my mind was something called a Bar 6. I can definitely remember eating Bar 6.
Bar 6.
And there was also club biscuits. Do you remember that little club biscuits? You can get different flavours.
Still get them.
Still get them?
Yeah.
And the tune?
I've no idea. Don't do it there, please. Go on.
If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit, join our club.
There you go. That was a bit of singing from Mr. Heaton.
And that's why he just sticks to doing lights.
And that's why he does the lights. Correct. Thank you. Ba-boom.
Now, when you talk about prices and things, I've just noticed a few things. Now, if you go back to motoring, I know it's probably going off track a little bit. A gallon of petrol in 1971 was 34 pence.
And what about the sweets that have changed the names?
Oh, now is Marathon changed? Was that something else?
Is that Snickers?
Yeah, Snickers. Marathon was Snickers.
That's true.
Treats.
Okay.
What are they now?
What
M&Ms or something like that?
Something like that.
The smaller version of treats.
Well, everything.
The chocolate that didn't melt in your hand.
Just in your mouth.
Just in your mouth. I've just seen another one. I'm just looking at the picture. Caramac.
Oh yes, I remember.
Do you remember the Caramac?
Love it.
That was different chocolate altogether, weren't it?
It's creamy, wasn't it? But dark brown.
Topics.
Lots of peanut.
I think you can still get Topics, but not like they used to be. I think everything, if nowadays what you get with them are a shrunken version of what we would have
It is true.
tasted.
Everything has gone smaller. But while you're talking about Topics, I had a friend and he had a kit where you could put everything in plastic. I don't know if you remember these kits. You could get something and then encase it in plastic, and it would then become like an ornament you could put on the side of the house, whatever. He did a bar of Topic, and he had a bar of Topic in plastic on a shelf in his house.
Yeah, they used to make a mould and pour like a resin into it, didn't
Yeah.
they?
And he bought that and did it himself. And I remember vividly going in every time thinking, why have you got a bar of Topic on the... And he said, I was just testing to see if I could do it. And he could. And the other one, of course, is Toblerone, which is still in existence.
Yeah.
But have you noticed how small it's getting compared to when we were young? It was quite a lot of chocolate for your money when we were young.
Actually, I've got a Toblerone in my fridge at the moment, and it's a large one.
Oh dear.
Can I
But
just
it's lasted a week.
Oh dear.
say that we went to, without naming names, but Costco.
You just named the name.
I know. Well, you always say
Other
that.
shops are available.
Other shops are available, and they
The
had
advertising.
they had a bar of Toblerone that weighed, I think it was £3
Okay.
in weight.
Did you buy it?
I couldn't afford to lift it up and without giving myself a hernia, I don't think.
Oh dear.
It was gigantic. It would definitely not fit in your fridge, Dave.
All right.
You would have to have broken it up segment by segment and then taken something like a pickaxe to it to break it up to have it in piecemeal.
Never mind.
How much was a packet of crisps back in the day?
Whoa, my God. Sixpence, was it?
Si-
An old
yeah.
sixpence. And
So that's
sixpence would be
2.5p.
2.5p.
Does that include the little blue bag?
That includes the
with
little blue
twist?
bag, yeah.
Yeah, with the salt.
Clock face crisps round here. Little blue bag in
Yeah.
with the salt. Yes, I remember it well. Moving on, one of the other things I spent my pocket money on as we grew older was magazines. And lots of those magazines were music magazines when I was young. So what I got with my money was Sounds, NME, New Musical Express, and The Melody Maker.
Yeah, the Melody Maker. Blimey, that's where I used to look at the big list of Virgin records and go through there and tick them and say, I'll have that, and I'll have that if I can afford it. And look through the import section, and then, it was like a little gold mine. But you get to find out what bands were going to play locally, live in Liverpool. Back in the day, you could always go and see a big name band every weekend in Liverpool. Like these days, you tend to have to go to Manchester Arena or the Echo Arena, and it's every blue moon. But back in the day, you could go every weekend and see a live band, and the Melody Maker was a good source of information to
It was the Bible.
the Bible.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I think as well, as you've just said, actual music venues. It being in Bolton, there was nothing as such, so every gig that I went to was always a journey out, mostly to Manchester, and I have been to Liverpool and to other places, but it was, like you said, the Bible, Dave, to get your gigs as to where you was going. Not a great reader of it in my early days, but after about 1975, when I had my eyes opened to music, as it were, and I changed from the pop to the prog rock, then that's when the music papers became a part of my life.
Then not only did they promote big bands and big venues, they also promoted smaller venues, like pubs with live music and stuff like that, which you don't tend to see these days. But I can remember one of the covers of the Melody Maker coming back was the concert at the Oval, and there was a photograph of Keith Emerson on the front of the Melody Maker with the gas holders behind him, playing an outdoor festival at the Oval. That's one of the covers I remember.
Right.
Magazines that we read that weren't music magazines. I think the only one that came into the house on a regular basis was the Radio Times.
Yeah.
I think if you had females in your house, you had the likes of Jackie, and there was another one, and the name escapes me at the minute. It weren't for me. It weren't really a lads thing. It was more comics for us.
Yes, comics. I remember comics.
Comics, the Beano, the Dandy,
Hotspur.
Hotspur, yeah, and getting all them old characters who I suppose nowadays would be on something like Disney channels and They'd have series made about them.
The Bash Street Kids
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Dennis the Menace and Nasher.
Nasher.
But they always had a free gift with the first 3 issues. And it was always the same free gift. It was something that went bang, usually. You'd throw it and it would go bang and crack and everything like that. There'd always be a free gift in the first 3 issues, and then you'd not buy it anymore because there was no free gift.
I don't think there were very many lads mags in a broader sense than not what you two are thinking about now.
Excuse me, how do you know what I'm thinking?
I saw the look on your face when I said lads mags.
Didn't take him long, did it?
We've reached the depths, ladies and gentlemen, so I think it's getting near the end of this week's podcast. Hang on.
What about first concerts?
That's now our next episode when we're going to do firsts. In our next episode, our next podcast, we're going to do firsts, along with 2 other topics. I think we're going to stop our podcast for today. This has been the 3 Daves talk about music, magazines and money. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us ramble on, ladies and gentlemen. We will be rambling on again very soon. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
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 The 3 Daves talked about music, magazines and money. This is a Mama Genesis Tribute Band production.